Welcome to Cloud and Clear, the podcast by SADA for innovative business leaders and technology enthusiasts, where we explore how Google Cloud is transforming the industry and what that means to you. Now, here's your host, Miles Ward.
Hi, everybody. My name is Miles Ward. I'm CTO here at SADA Systems, and this is Cloud and Clear. This is our podcast exploring the nuance and detail of SADA and our customers' explorations of Google Cloud, where we're all going to better understand and take advantage of this incredible platform and what that's doing to businesses around the world. I am super geeked about today's session. I think this is my fifth, but I couldn't be more excited to have my man, DP from Sojern. He is the Senior Director of Engineering. That is senior with a big SR in front of it. Maybe DP, you can give an introduction about.
Sure, yeah, I think you did, 99% of it. So I think I had the distinct honor of being Miles's guest with the lowest number of Twitter followers. So, Hey. So as Miles mentioned, I'm the Senior Director of Engineering at Sojern, where I've been for almost 6.5 years, building some really cool things. And I've been very lucky to be on the Google Cloud bandwagon since early 2014. So, Miles and I got to know each other over the years since we started working with SADA, and I'm really excited to be here.
That is awesome. So, for everybody's context, because it took us a while to figure out it too, can you unpack Sojern? What does it do?
Sure, yeah. I'll give you a quick, 30-second version of it, because no one puts me in a marketing job for a very specific reason. Sojern is Travel's direct demand engine, which is our speak for if you are a hotel, if you are a small hotel especially, you have a case of perishable inventory. Your hotel rooms, if no one stays there for the night, you're losing money on it. Sojern's, value proposition is we connect the, travelers to direct demand. We try to get the traveler from their dream of going to Hawaii to their destination of finding that right boutique hotel that they want. And we do that with large amounts of data with signals we collect from different sources, use ML, use, large amounts of data science, data engineering, and, connect the dots. So that's what Sojern does. My job at Sojern has been, working on the data platform as a software engineer, working on managing teams over the years, converting platform from one language to another, growing it between different DSPs. It's been a lot of fun.
Language to another. Ooh, that sounds brutal.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds brutal, but, for me, that was the best part. So when I joined Sojern, we were Ruby on Rails shop for all things front end.
Sure. And
we were using Java and a very specific way of using Java, right? So we were using Java with Juice and Guava for some things, Drop Wizard for some other things. And part of it because, some of the engineers who were there made those choices. And, that was like my first experience working with Juice and Guava. And I was amazed how good that thing is. I mean, Google engineers did an amazing job building those tools and libraries. So we continued working with that because we were working with OpenRTB, OpenBidder, toolkit.
Sure,
and that was Java. So, we had to do Java. And that was kind of our foray into Google Cloud as well. Like if you're using OpenBidder, you had to be close to Google to meet the 100 millisecond latency. So, we started using Google Cloud. And over the years, we just, we had more data scientists. Data scientists, were more comfortable using Python. So we built part of the platform using Python, like, all the ML pieces so that, data scientists can freely contribute without having to deal with, ML in Java, which is no one's favorite thing. So that was, one migration, which was very organic, right? It wasn't forced on anyone's throat. Like, people came, the team came up with it and team went with it. And, we made the tooling around it to make it all successful. Then phase 2 was like, some of the services now were written in Python, but we're running into performance issues because, Python is great and Python can be highly performant. Like, I don't want to start a flame war. Python can be highly performant, but you're, dealing with something that is sending like tens of thousands of requests to, some DSP a second, you probably want more concurrency and more parallelism. And, here's a plug for that Rob Pike's talk about concurrency and parallelism are different thing, which is really great. Everyone should listen to it. So I took a chance on Go at that point. This is like back in 2015 where we had some extra cycles. And it was super easy to convert a basic Python, service into a Go service. Like it took 1 weekend to do that. And again, it was very organic. Like the engineers who were, involved in the code review, they were like, oh yeah, this is cool. We can, start doing more things in Go. So again, the migration turned into like, okay, we have some services that are in Python or in Java. I think Go is a better fit for it. We are adding new features or rewriting them. Let's turn that into Go. And that led to a mishmash of Java, Go, Python, and Ruby on Rails, which is okay, but not great. You limit languages to a manageable amount. So we decided to kind of nix on Ruby on Rails because everyone was gravitating towards Python for all things front end and all things data engineering and all things ML. And for anything like, real time, anything, high throughput, low latency, Go seemed like a natural choice. So we went with that. Yeah, it was great.
Yeah. So that, abstracted inside of that is, when you talk about it, it's so obvious and clear that you had these requirements and they were presented to you as a result of challenges, and you dove into the technologies that seemed like the best fit at the time, and you adopted them and took on that change. I mean, there are a huge number of businesses who would be listening to this podcast going, I can't change like that. Was he talking about 26 years? Oh, he said 6 years? Jesus. So I think there's a story inside of that story about, did it feel natural inside the business to change at that kind of rate? Was it just like, oh yeah, this is how we always have been? Or did you have to kind of spur people forward and be like, we got to do this, we got to go?
Yeah, that's a great question. And look, I've been very fortunate at Sojern to have that level of support from, everyone. And I think just to use another example of something like this. So switching from one language to another, it is a big deal. Like, no one just goes in and says like, okay, I'm going to start using Go tomorrow. And, you need tooling around it. You need, make sure that the code quality, like, you need to retrain everyone. You need to retrain everyone's brain. So we're not like reinventing Java in Go. Fortunately, the team, the engineers at Sojern, they're phenomenal in terms of, embracing the change and championing the change. And from leadership, I was never even a question of like, why are we doing this? It was like, okay, well, if this is right, this is right. So, again, another example of that is like, we've been on the we've been using Kubernetes for since it's been around. So when Kubernetes came out, like, GK was in beta in 2015, we started using it pretty early on, and it's been just the best experience since we started. And no one at Sojern said, why are we doing this? Let's not do this. It was like, okay, this sounds cool. Our CTO Jeremy was like super supportive of this. Our CEO Mark has been extremely supportive of all of this efforts. And now our VP of engineering and data science, like Carl Livadas, I mean, there's never been a day where we're like, okay, why are we doing this? It's more like, okay, cool, that sounds like fun. We need to do this. And, it aligns with everything we're trying to do. So anything we can do to keep our hands out of the messy things, it's better for us.
Yeah. And, I think there's a lot of customers that we work with that struggle with more burden than that, right? That have opposition at senior leadership, or they struggle with, pre-existing relationships or contractual stuff that makes things complicated. So I think what we saw when we were working together was just how performant Sojern is as a business as a result of that flexibility and capability, right? This is a fast moving market space. There's a zillion competitors, right? Like it's an intense moment. I mean, what do you think that the flexibility that you were able to bring to the problem has enabled you to be competitive?
I think so. I absolutely think so. I mean, there used to be a customer testimonial that I wrote on Google Cloud's customer pages. I was trying to find it. I wasn't able to. Got reshuffled.
We can't Google it? Like, come on, something's not terribly wrong.
You can Google it, but you can't go to it. It apparently links to the Google Spanish version, and it's, so I need to talk to, Will about that. But yes, to answer your question, the flexibility has been hugely helpful for us. We were able to move fast and without breaking things for the most part, because of how supportive the team was and how strong the platform was. I mean, the reason we switched all of our workloads to Google Cloud was not because it was a fun exercise and, I wanted to get some, practice on my Kinesis keyboard, get my keystroke count up, right? It was because, we needed a new solution for our data warehousing needs. Now, when the problem was posed to us, because our data warehouse used to be in our data center back in Omaha, we were running our own Hive cluster. And, for those who have run their Hive clusters and those who continue to run their own Hive clusters, props to you. That is not an easy job. It takes a lot of effort to, make it run well, grow it, because, you can't just grow overnight. You need to provision new hardware. You need to get switches. You need to make sure that everything is set up properly. It's a lot of effort. Now, you do the same thing, but on BigQuery, where you load up your data and just, press and go, and it just works. And that level of flexibility allows you to, really move to address, changing landscape in the business. You can say okay, all of a sudden our data volume has grown 10-folds for just this one weekend because we are working on a new partnership with someone who is, going to give us a lot of data, 8 terabytes just showed up. What are we going to do with it? We don't need to buy hardware. We can just put it in GCS, load it up in BigQuery, and, there you go. So that flexibility, both on Google's side and, from our leadership team's, support, has been hugely helpful for us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a lot of customers that we're working with where, BigQuery has been the kind of magic superpower, right? It's not possible for it to get enough press, right? The things that product can do is so insane.
Yeah, I mean, I think BigQuery is almost, Google undersells it. I don't think people fully realize how powerful that thing is. I remember doing the demo of BigQuery to my wider team. One weekend we were okay, let's just export everything we have in, this HDFS to, convert that to new line delimited JSON, move it to GCS and load it up in BigQuery. And then we were just doing side by side of okay, this is the same query you're running on Hive, and this is the same query you're running on BigQuery. Mm-hmm. That's the pure, okay, this is mind blown moment.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And do you mean I don't have to worry about mappers and reducers anymore? I'm yeah, you don't have to worry about mappers and reducers now. There are slots and everything, but just don't worry about that.
Yeah. No, we're working with a bunch of different customers, and there are plenty of moments that are magical as they experience some of these products, but BigQuery is just, the numbers are right there. So we're working on another project, and we had, customer has a giant Hadoop infrastructure, right? And super motivated about maintaining that skill set, and all, they all of their communication to us is about their investment in it. And we show that moving that onto Dataproc, which is a great product on the Google side for running Hadoop, they shave off just over 8% on total cost of ownership. That's pretty, hey, who doesn't want to save 8%? The queries on BigQuery were 79 times faster.
Yeah. 79
times, right? It's the kind of thing Google talks about a lot with X, where it's well, this is a multi-billion-dollar opportunity, so I don't even really need to write up a business plan for it because it's such an obviously incredibly good idea. Of course we would invest. What do you mean?
Exactly. And, if you had said, okay, we're going to replace this with something, it's going to be 79 times faster, I'd be okay, whatever. Just, stop joking with me. I haven't had my coffee yet. Let's talk after coffee. 5 years ago, when I hadn't used BigQuery. Now it seems yeah, of course it's 79 times faster. I'm surprised It's not 800 times faster, because there is some magic going on behind the scenes, behind the BigQuery console. There's some elves doing elvish things, but it works. All the props to the team leads and people who built that. It is by far my favorite product. When someone asked me why we picked Google Cloud, I was actually on a flight to Ireland some time ago, and person sitting next to me saw me on my laptop doing something. He was oh, what are you doing? I was oh, this is my just cloud console. I'm making sure that something I was doing is done or not. They're cool. You guys use AWS? I'm no, this is Google Cloud. And I have used AWS as well.
Sure.
And he was surprised why I was using this. And I was well, just do two things, BigQuery and Bigtable. If you can get me BigQuery and Bigtable, I really don't need anything else.
Yeah.
Once you realize that you don't have to worry about edge-based nodes or anything, just spawn 5 or 6 node Bigtable and, just forget that it exists. Just keep throwing data at it. it's a pretty magical moment in your life.
Yeah, no, Jordan Tagani and the whole BQ team, has done incredible things. And for folks in the audience, this is the sound that somebody makes when they actually know what they're talking about. So when DP says like, hey, I thought you just said a higher number, like 79 doesn't sound all that high. Like he is correct. That was the worst result from our testing, which we used for our analysis because we wanted to make sure that we were being conservative in our comparison. The best one was 1,004 times faster, right? But you can't say that stuff out loud for people that don't understand the platform. They're like, yeah, BS, I don't believe you at all, right? You're like, try it, right? Like, and it is definitely a thing. So, I think we've kind of backed our way into talking about your stack, which is great because I'm a stack dork, right? So, there's Kubernetes where you're landing applications of a couple of different languages. They're in talking to Bigtable, and then a bunch of those rows are making their way over to BigQuery where you can do analytics on that. Any other sort of major building blocks that have been critical?
This is my favorite thing to talk about. Okay.
On the stack.
I want to slow it down, and I'll have to slow down the way I speak. So one of my favorite things about Google Cloud when I started using it was, GCLB. Like when GCLB came about, you have a single global IP, and you can put all of your, we have globally distributed, cluster of Kubernetes, Kubernetes clusters where we start ingesting data. Once that comes in, it all goes on Popsup, which is by far one of my favorite products. And, Kier is, he's a rock star. And the team.
And by using those two products, right, like you've just slipstreamed into the first two services that are built from internal Alphabet level tools, right? So I bet you the load balancer works pretty good because every ad flows through it. And I bet you the queuing mechanism is probably pretty solid because every ad bid flows through it, right? Like
Popsup is insane. So I think I sent a note to Kier after we switched to Popsup. Before Popsup, we were a very RabbitMQ family. Like we don't speak of anything else. We are Rabbit family, right? November of 2018, I was in Ireland to spend time with my team, and the lead SRE there, and I decided to upgrade our Rabbit server because, it was super old, and we were like, okay, this is one of those things that hasn't been upgraded in some time, let's bounce it. And by the time we were done, we were never able to recover it. Like it was slow all of a sudden, it wasn't working, and we had Rabbit in a HubSpot topology, like using shovels. So the next weekend we was like, okay, this is not working. We can't fix it. We can't figure it out. We've tried everything. We even work with, cloud solution architects, and, no one was able to see why Rabbit wasn't working the way it was working a week ago. So we switched our Go libraries from, pointing to Rabbit to pointing to Popsup. And within one day, we switched from RabbitMQ to Popsup. And since then, no one has ever looked at Popsup. It just works. It's one of those things that you don't have to worry about it. We go from gigabytes to terabytes of traffic, and again, we're not worried about it. So Popsup, I'm a huge fan. If anyone needs a customer testimonial for Popsup, please, happy to provide it. I'm a huge
knock on DP's door. You're highlighting a spot where, and I think it's a part of the feedback I give to Googlers now, even as an independent third party, that I want access to all the infrastructure primitives, right? Like it would actually be pretty groovy to go in and see the logs on the backend instances of a PubSub node. That might inform other decisions or thoughts that I'm making. It'd be pretty awesome to understand kind of the scaling logic and the cool bits that are happening inside of BigQuery. But those values are tiny in comparison to deleting those problems from my mind space.
Yeah, you don't worry about it.
Just want someone else to take, and all of those things are either in the traffic flow, scary, risky, or storage, scary, risky. Right? Please take my state. Take state.
Take it away from me. I don't want to deal with it. You clearly have better, minds at work there. Huge fan. So anyway, I digress because I love Popsup so much. So once the data is on Popsup, it comes to our central, data center where we process things. And, that's one of the US central regions. There we have one of our largest, Kubernetes clusters with, thousands of CPU cores and, terabytes of RAM. That's where we are hosting everything. So we are hosting our big table in that region. We are hosting a data flow pipelines in that region. We are hosting our, Elasticsearch cluster that's hosted on Kubernetes in the same region. Cloud SQL instances, everything is right there. I mean, few things we don't use anymore. Like we don't use Dataproc anymore because, Dataflow does the job. We don't, other than that, like we use quite a few services. We started using recently Cloud ML for, our ML needs, and it's all working just as you would expect, just works out of the box. We don't have to worry much about the infra pieces of things. So been a really interesting experience, like, adding one service at a time to our stack. Like quite recently, we had enough projects and with enough employees, like managing state on cloud was becoming, more of a challenge than it used to be. Like we want to make sure that everything like IAM was properly in the code base, rather than someone going into the console and modifying it, right? So we switched to Terraform about a year and a half ago, where everything within our cloud infrastructure is managed to a single Terraform repository, and it's part of our mono repo. So it all just works, right? And with that, all like 50 plus, 100 plus, however many projects we have, they're all managed with Terraform. If you need access to a bucket, if you need access to a project, it's a CL that you have to create and get it, gets merged, applied, and then you get access to that resource, which is great.
Yeah. There are so many places that are trying to see. I think of it like I was a terrible, shitty, ultra terrible PHP developer, right? Like made some of the most horrible kludgy hacks you have ever imagined. And I read Automatic's source for WordPress, and WordPress isn't, the miracle of all miracles, but it was light years ahead of the software that I was putting together. And to just be able to see kind of their view of an application end to end, it was like, oh, okay, I get it. That is a much more sort of sensible structural approach. I think I'm trying to figure out a better way to put in front of, modern enterprise, big scale shops. Like, this is what infrastructure as code looks like for you end to end, right? So you can really see the whole mama. And it's not like, here's a demo of this one thing that I turned on and off. It's like, no, I don't even understand what it looks like when I'm managing 7,000 projects and I got 200 developers in different languages. At big, I think this stuff gets really daunting. It's the same as like really early on in the AWS console, we had never seen customers that had thousands of hosts. So you couldn't scroll that far in the instance count list. And the Netflix folks called and said like, we can't get to the bottom of your little UI thing here. And we're like, oh, okay, sorry, right? So there's just stuff where as all of this gets bigger, tools got to catch up, right?
I mean, we had to do that because, like you said, we were not able to manage our infrastructure. Like when it was just like 3 or 4 projects, and me and like 8 other engineers, we were like, okay, this is easy enough. We know exactly what everything is. After we have 50 plus projects, each project has like multiple Kubernetes clusters with different workloads spread across different projects. It just becomes untenable. So now it's all part of a single repository where there's customized files and Kubernetes manifests all just in the right place, where if you run like a top level apply, it makes the world the way it's in the infrastructure. So if it's not checked in, it doesn't exist. That's the mentality, which is pretty powerful.
Yeah, it was great. There's this balancing act, right? You want a provider to give you user interfaces, web interfaces for all those things that you're going to do like exactly one time, right? Like I am not going to create the org node for my whole company 50 times a day. So that it has an API is important just for sort of consistency, but like you really got to sort of make sure the web interface for that is pretty tidy. The flip side of that is like, there would never be a useful web interface for enqueuing a single object into Popsup. Like that would just be silly. So one of the things that like I was just going back and forth with one of the Firebase guys about how it remains complicated to use Firebase hosting for for a web-based user to go through and create a flat static site and get some objects exported and be able to expose all that stuff. And he's like, well, yeah, you just go to the CLI. I'm like, my mom sure doesn't, right? Like there's a whole bunch of those tools that don't work that way. Where, if we've gone through all the good news, like where in the platform do you still find friction? Where should we go make fun of the Google side, right?
I think the balancing just walking the line, that's critical, right? So there are parts where I'm just too worried, too paranoid to automate everything. For example, like Bigtable. Bigtable is excluded from our Terraform configuration because I don't want it to accidentally get wiped out. I know it's not going to happen, but I'm just keep your hands off of Bigtable. That's our rule, and we keep it restricted to some users because it is such a powerful tool. It has our hundreds of terabytes of data that if you lose, then we are so so trouble that I don't even know what to think about that. That gives me heebie-jeebies. So when you say friction, that's the first thing that comes to my mind. Like as much as I love Bigtable, and I've talked to the Bigtable PMs over like at GCP Next multiple times, and they have given me assurances that there is an internal backup that you can restore. But like Bigtable is just something that worries me because it's not visible to me. Now I know that backup is becoming more available in the user interface where you can take snapshots. But that when something is that powerful, you're just worried about losing all of it in an instance, and then just the hell raining down.
Oh yeah, because they got the backups for Spanner that got done, right? Yeah. And you're like, okay, so the button I want, just give me that button. A bunch of other places,
make it visible for me so I can say, okay, weekly schedule snapshots, so I can sleep easy at night. Yeah. So things like little things like that, just to make me sleep better at night. And monitoring was like my big complaint for a long time. Like, hey, can you please not make me go to the stack driver URL? Just keep it in the same console. And now it's there. So is logging. So like everything that I've over the years asked for as features, like despite us being pretty small customers in the grand scheme of things, it all comes up eventually. Like the friction is slowly getting reduced. As weeks, as months pass by. These days, things that I genuinely care about is like, okay, can we have a Go SDK for Dataflow that, really works, that's like fully supported? Because I really don't want to keep Python around in my stack just for Dataflow. I'd very much like to move away from that. But Go has its own limitations when it comes to, generics, which is a minefield that I do not want to walk over.
Yeah. No, we've struggled a bunch with, like, that whole part of the infrastructure system, right? I mean, Dataflow, Cloud Composer, Data Fusion, they're all independently, they're beautifully done. Like they work great and they're rad. And like, but I need to consume at a layer of abstraction above that, right? I want something that just rolls all, the workloads that I'm trying to do. Like, so you talked early on about interacting with the real-time bidding engine when or the open bidder. When I started, I was like, hey, I think I'm going to be in charge of the solution stuff. And they're like, oh, okay, awesome. We already have a solutions page. Are you going to add to that? I was like, well, let me take a look at this page. And it had instructions for installing Hadoop and instructions for standing up the open bidder. Because there was like one guy who was all fired up about bidding, and he had like written out this like enormous architecture diagram and every one of the individual pieces. And he had like all the mapping. So those were the two solutions total in Google Cloud at the time. So, we talked about friction. And, and the kind of building blocks that you're using. There's, as we're in this kind of unusual time where everybody's sort of schedule gotten messed up, I was expecting to be doing a bunch of interviews talking about all the amazing announcements at Google Next. But like, oh, wait a minute, they pushed it out this direction, and now it's something that's happening in July. We're kind of pulling together a mystery science theater 3000. Talk about the talks, feedback, snark away. So maybe it might be a thing you want to come on and be.
Web Soup, Joel McHale, commenting, not commenting. That's great.
Yeah, it should be. So maybe if you want, we'll figure out one that's Either it's on data flow, we can give them a bunch of shit about not having reasonable Go things worked out.
They know, and I don't want to give data flow team any shit. Like,
no, because they built a beautiful thing. Like, congratulations, data flow.
Great job. And Cloud Composer is on my wish list. I've talked to the engineers who are working on Cloud Composer, and my only request is please make it better, because Cloud Composer is one tool that I don't look forward to using. But Airflow in general, I don't look forward to using. All of our DAGs are part of Jenkins, because we know that it is unbelievably reliable. It works. It just works. You don't have to worry about restarting. You don't have to worry about reruns. It's easy to grok. It's easy to keep checked in. So I just want something that's built by Google internally that does schedule workloads better.
Well, right, like Google has that. It's called Borg CFG, and you don't want it. It's horrible. It's the whole reason they built Kubernetes, right? Like, to not have to teach anybody how to use Borg CFG. So one other a tool to look at that we've been poking around in is made by a bunch of ex-Airflow folks called Prefect. That's like it's kind of Airflow that doesn't suck and goes faster. Like the thing we ran into with Airflow is that the 5-minute loop is BS. Like, I'm going to wait and watch this thing. Like, I think it's 2020. I think we do things in milliseconds now. Like, go with your 5 minutes. It's adorable. So that was a big unlock for us. A couple of our customers were interested in.
Okay, we'll definitely look into that. We tried out Argo for a little bit, and it didn't, we use it for some of our Kubeflow pipelines, but we are not, aggressively using it across the board for all of our scheduling needs.
Sure. Yeah. I don't know whether, Cloud Composer just does a V2 and wraps Prefect, or Google breaks out and builds another API for this stuff. But like, that scheduling thing is a thing. It's just, it's a pesky thing still. Yeah. All right. Any last bits you want to tell our audience? I thought this was super constructive and fun. I really
enjoyed it. I can be your Dennis Leary to your Jon Stewart anytime.
Perfect. I'm in. Sold. All right. Well, everybody listening in, thank you so much. You can, I don't know where you click on the thing that you're listening to, but you should subscribe if you liked this one. It sounds like DP needs more Twitter followers. So certainly you should follow him, because he's twice as smart as I am. So I'm looking forward to the next conversation.
All right. Thank you so much, Miles. Cheers.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you for listening to Cloud and Clear. Check the show notes for links to this week's topics. And don't forget to connect with us on Twitter @Cloud&Clear and our website, sada.com. Be sure to rate and review the show on your favorite podcast app.